Hey, before we jump into the video, I do feel like I need to explain a couple of things. One is I had so much fun talking to Liza. She's an incredible, very impressive person, and I am so grateful to her for having this conversation, being so open and forthright with it. The whole thing was just incredible. We ended up with a bit over 2 hours worth of footage, and so I decided to cut it into two separate videos. You're watching part one now today, and then there will be a part two. They'll probably be released about a week later, depending when you watch them. You may be able to just go to the playlist on my channel and find them together. This first video is going to be more about her experience as a player. She is a officer and a BG leader, and now a war planner in one of the most high-profile alliances in the whole game. She's one of the best players in the game. We'll give all the stats showing that when we start off. And then the second video will be a bit more diving into specific experiences as a female, as a woman, and her thoughts, her experience, and her advice to other women. And then, of course, non-women who would like to just create a better environment for everyone. I really appreciate that. I learned so much in both parts of this interview or this conversation that you will see. Thank you so much for watching this. Please hit up the comment section, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome back to the channel. All right, it's time for the next episode of Trending, and we've got another awesome one for you. I have to admit, I am again a little bit of a fanboy here. I am honored to have Liza on the conversation with me. For those of you who do not know her, and I imagine all of you do, but for those of you who do not know her, she is a longtime BG leader in For Loki. She is now about to take on the responsibilities of being the sole Alliance War Planner for BG3 that has the likes of Pandaman Pete, Enzo, and Legacy in it. She has an incredible YouTube channel that I personally know myself and other players have commented on. She taught us how to get better at Alliance War. I really hope that we can convince her to maybe start uploading again. And then, just to show you how amazing she is at this game, she has the longest solo streak in For Loki history of 247 fights in a row soloed, meaning not a single death in 247. And to give you an idea of how impressive that is, the next closest streak is 181. That is a significant difference. Liza, thank you so much for being on the call with me today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I am honored. So this month is March. It is, I believe, International Women's Month. That is a really nice kind of coincidence. It was a little bit of a motivation that got me to finally get enough bravery to ask you if you'd be willing to be on this. But we're also just going to talk about war, and I have, and then your experience also playing the game. I have asked my Discord server. We have a whole channel set up for questions that people would like to know or to ask, and we're just going to go through them. Being a woman, I would really like it if you would be willing to share your experiences, whatever you're comfortable with, and we can just kind of interweave that throughout the conversation if that works for you.
Yeah, of course. I'm open to talking about whatever you would like to talk about.
Thank you. That works out well. All right.
Yes.
So we'll just jump straight into this. A lot of the questions were, unsurprisingly, about war. I think a lot of the people on my Discord server know how much I enjoy war. They know that you are one of the planners or have been one of the planners for BG3. I talk about it quite a bit in my videos. And then they know that you're taking over. Taters has retired. And so to just kind of like jump straight into that, how are you feeling about that? How are you feeling about running the BG? I mean, literally, from what I can tell, by yourself.
You know, it's really bittersweet for me, honestly, because Taters is, you know, one of my absolute best friends that I've made in this game playing. He's taught me more than anybody else has. Just about like how to approach fights, you know, how to lead a group. So it's very, very, very hard for me, like with him stepping away, and you know, I don't know. So I'm excited. I feel hopeful because I feel like he's taught me a lot of things, and this is kind of the next step in progression. But at the same time, like, I don't know. It's going to be different. I'm really nervous. He left some really big shoes to fill. with, BG3, and I think people have high expectations from us, and I'm just going to do my best to, keep his legacy alive.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's pretty much how I'm feeling about the whole situation as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you have a very realistic and pragmatic understanding on there. And then also, like you mentioned, you've become friends. So there's also this friend who you're running the BG with that's now no longer there. And you two cultivated an incredible culture in that BG. I experienced it myself. I went there, and I know I have become a significantly better player, at least in regard to war, from day one of joining it to today. And a lot of that's due to the culture that you two have cultivated. And honestly, though, was it a full 2 seasons or 1.5 where you were leading it? Taters was on a break.
I think that was just 1 season, but it was kind of extended by a long off season.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and I think that we had another officer come in to help me. That was DeLeon.
Yeah.
So he came in from DSVG to help out. So even then I wasn't, completely by myself. I had backup at that point. So this is going to be my first time doing it by myself. And my first time, I feel like I got a lot of credit for stuff that primarily Taters was doing for BG3.
Yeah.
But, truthfully, everything that people experienced in BG3 as far as the planning stuff goes, it was all from Taters. So this is, I feel like this is my first time actually doing something like this, actually leading the group. So I'm a little bit nervous about that too, but
yeah.
But hopeful. We have such a strong group that I think it'll be okay.
Oh, it's going to be fine. I mean, I've gotten to firsthand experience your war planning. The last 2 off-season wars, they've been excellent. They've been amazing. The back and forth conversations, which I do think, honestly, is a real advantage, or it's been a big benefit to me in that I get the war plan, and then I get to DM with you, or we have a conversation in the battle group where it's forcing me to think through the plan of the fight, as opposed to just following directions, which is also great. Don't get me wrong. And there's been points in my war career where I needed that. I needed from second 1 of the fight till its conclusion. But having to think it through and go through with you and learning the way you're thinking about the fight has been incredibly helpful. So please keep that in mind. That's a great thing for us players.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about this game is, getting to talk to other people, get their idea. Nobody knows everything, unless I can take a fight 100 times and give that fight to somebody else, and they might find something out about it that I don't know, so
yeah.
There's definitely no, ego involved here. I know that I don't always know best, so I'm always open to discussions with anybody about anything having to do with the game.
Yeah, it's interesting is I don't think there's any way anyone listening who's rational would think that you have an oversized ego. In fact, you sound incredibly humble, maybe even too much. And I want to point it out to the viewers. I have created a playlist of some of Liza's war videos, and they are amazing. They are incredible. If watch them, and you'll see a variety of champions used over, I think I have almost 1.5 years captured here. Check them out, and you will see the type of skills that are going to be on display for you. So I should probably ask some of the more very specific questions. People put the time into to ask them. So I'd like to kind of go through them a bit and just kind of continue this conversation. And one of the first ones that was asked, I thought this was really interesting, is how do you feel about the current tiebreaker system? The way wars, if there's a tie, meaning that there's the same amount of deaths and everyone has the same diversity, the current tiebreaker is the duration of fights and how long it took you. How do you like that? Do you like that there is a tiebreaker? And if it is, how do you like that as being the one?
So I definitely like the fact that there's a tiebreaker. I think that is, I think that's mandatory. There were way too many times where alliances were were tying with super low death wars, and it was treated as a loss for both alliances, and I didn't think that that was fair.
Yeah.
So I do like the fact that there's a tiebreaker. I'm not sure that time duration is the best tiebreaker, or like the most creative tiebreaker that they could have come up with. But I'm appreciative of the fact that one exists. So it's also a thing where I'm not sure. I haven't put a ton of thought into, what I think would be a better tiebreaker. So, since I haven't done that, I can't complain too much about it.
Yeah.
But I am happy that one exists, and I think that it does kind of add a different element of strategy. Like if bans weren't a thing, like you might win a war based on getting like more creative with a high DPS champion, like a higher risk, higher reward attacker, than just loading up 10 Quakes in the battle group and telling everyone to go do like 53-minute fights. So I guess I do like it. I don't mind it.
That would make your job
be worse.
That would make your job easier, though, right? If you're just like, all right, guys, everyone's going to Quake every fight. Good luck.
Yeah, no, that would make it a lot easier. Yeah.
I'm with you in that. I like that there is a tiebreaker. I don't love the tiebreaker that's been chosen. I also don't have a better idea. So I'm a big believer in the like, if you can't help find the answer, maybe don't complain too much on it. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's exactly how I feel about it.
Yeah, that was the sense I was kind of grabbing there. So, how long though? That was good. It was interesting that with the joke about the 10 Quakes. How long does it actually take to plan a war? I mean, this is tier 1. This is the apex of the game. How long does that take from like you look at the map to you're sending out the attack plan?
So, I think for somebody like Taters, like he was able to probably do it in an hour if he had like an uninterrupted hour, 45 minutes, give or take 30 minutes. So maybe an hour and a half if it was a tough map. For me, I have done it in as few as 2 hours, and I have done it. I planned one war and it took me, I think, around like 4.5 hours, and Taters actually ended up having to like help me. He had to get on call with me like as soon as he got off work, and you might even remember the war. There was a war we didn't get plans out until like I think 6.5 hours after attack started.
Yeah.
Because I just got so lost. I just got, trying to keep track of too many things mentally. I just got completely overwhelmed by the map. So but on average, I think it will probably take me like 2.5 hours.
Yeah. And do you think that's something that like there's the map itself, right? And like, I mean, it's cool that you happen to be showing a map in the video right now, and you're looking at like Boss Island. There's the map itself and figuring out the various, I guess, solutions to the puzzle that's presented to you, but then also who you actually have at your disposal. Meaning the way I've seen that is like the players themselves, the accounts, meaning the champions they have at rank 3, or like a Quake or a Magic, maybe or some 5 stars to be willing to, and then also their schedule. Like I'm very well aware that I have a very difficult schedule. I don't mean to, but I make your life harder as a planner. So as you kind of get used to that, meaning like what's at your disposal and different people's schedules and time zones, do you think that would significantly decrease the amount of time it takes to actually see the map to getting the plan out?
So obviously, like, we do take into account like what players we're assigning what fights. There are some players like that are very rare, like Legacy or Bryn, who you could literally, like, I would plan other people's paths first and plan theirs last because I knew that they could do anything,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would kind of work in reverse order with them.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like, yeah, I definitely, you have to take into account like people's roster sizes, champions that they're most comfortable with. Some people have like a lot of champions ranked up and aren't super well versed in all of the champions they have ranked, like myself included. I have a lot of champions ranked who I've just messed around with in like monthly event quest, you know?
Yeah.
So that definitely does play a part.
Yeah.
And then as far as schedules go, you know, I know you said that you make life harder. I don't think that that's true. For the most part, you have a really easy schedule. And that's actually something whenever we had the change up in like BG3, you know, we brought in like Carl and TJ left, and a big part of like the recruiting process, but like in this last off season, had to do with people's schedules and availability, just making sure that, you know, they were gonna be available for war attack, that they, you know, were in a time zone that worked well with the battle group. Like that was a huge deal for me, you know, before taking over, because I know that I don't have as much time to mess around with various schedules like that. You know, I just, if there's too many moving parts, I'm just gonna get overwhelmed. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but
Yeah.
all of that stuff definitely plays a part. I don't think that it makes planning any longer for me, because I pretty much know everyone in BG3 well enough to that stuff's kind of baked in at this point, you know.
Got it.
I know who I'm giving what fights to as soon as I look at the map.
That's cool.
For the most part.
That's really cool. And no, it definitely answered the question. And I think it probably gave a ton of insight into just how many variables there are. How, like, it's not just like, oh, hey, look, there's a thing boss. Okay, Omega Red. It is significantly more detailed, nuanced, and there's a lot of other priorities besides just what's a good champion to take a fight. Although that's a good place to start, it sounds like. So this was a cool question, and this was asked from another planner. This was actually asked by Iron Patriot. He's a planner for Noxious Smoke and a Mythic. One of I think there's 10 players in the game who have the Mythic title. He's one of them.
I know Iron Patriot. He's very, very skilled.
Absolutely. Good dude, too. Very good dude. A lot younger than I thought he was. There's a lot of really mature young men out there playing MCoC. And so here was this question, is how much responsibility do you feel when someone dies? Especially if it was an interaction you being the planner didn't foresee.
You know, the level of responsibility that I feel when somebody, even in these off-season wars that we've been like testing with, like if I give somebody a fight, and they die to it, it feels worse than if I die to a fight. And I hate dying in Alliance where I just, you know, it just is mood shattering for me. So, if I give somebody a fight and they die to it, and it's something that I could have prevented if I had like, even if the matchup was good, but I like didn't explain the strategy to them, or I mean, it's just awful. It's one of the worst feelings in the game, I think, actually, if not the worst feeling in the game, is feeling responsible for somebody dying.
All right, now I think conversely is the word. We almost need DLL here. He'd tell us what words mean, but. What if the player just has the incorrect game plan? Meaning, you know, you assigned Omega Red versus Mole Man. It just happened to be the fight that's on there, and the matchup's great, and you just didn't think like you needed to take them from second one to conclusion, and they go in, and then it's very clear that they didn't understand the fight and they didn't ask you. Does that minimize it for you a little bit, or can you walk us through that?
I don't think that minimizes it. Like, for me personally, I guess my philosophy, and I think a lot of this just comes from playing with Tater. Like, Taters and I have spent hours on like a Skype call with the map up, you know, both looking at it, with him, you know, showing me or telling me how he plans a war. So I know that if if a matchup requires a specific strategy, like to be successful, it's my responsibility to explain that to somebody or give them like a video of it in a duel, or if there's like a war video. So if I don't explain the fight strategy, even if they don't ask, then I still feel responsible for that. The only way I wouldn't feel responsible is if I give someone the fight strategy. I know it's a good matchup, like it's been tested before. I know it can be done, and the person just like misplays it completely, or they make a mistake, or they get like a bad AI or something. Then I'm not gonna feel responsible for that death. That's the only way that I wouldn't feel responsible for a death.
I think, I mean, I'm actually, as someone who plays in your BG, I'm relieved to hear that. I had 2 deaths this last season, and neither of them I would hope that you or Taters felt badly about at all. If anything, I hope it was just like, oh, poor Vega. I don't know why this happens to him once or twice a season. So I'm relieved to hear that. So war, right? You obviously love it. You wouldn't spend this much time on it, and I can hear it, like the way you're talking about it. But it's got its flaws. I think we could all agree on that.
Yes, definitely.
You could change one, but only one thing about war in this hypothetical. It was very clear. And I like it. I like that there's limitations on it. And I think this is from OG Highline. What's up, dude? So you can change one and only one thing about war. What is it?
Gosh, it's so tough.
Yeah, it is.
Only one thing, because there are 2 things that come to mind that I would like changed, or that I would change, like if I could.
Let's do them both. I mean, he's not here. We can make up our own rules.
So one of them is a little bit more specific, and it's something that I think or hope is coming with the ban system.
Yeah.
And that is a limit to how many times you can ban a specific champion in the season.
Yeah.
So I love the ban system. I think that it was like needed. It was the next evolution of Alliance War, you know, because a meta forms, people just are using the same champions over and over again to take fights.
Yeah.
It gets kind of stale, and it's not super interesting. So I think that bans were like the perfect segue into, like, you know, it's like playing chess instead of checkers almost, you know, like deciding who to ban, how to set up your defense. So, but I don't think that you should be able to ban a champion as an alliance more than 4 times in a season. I think that it should be spread out a little bit more, because last season, like, you know, it was the same exact champions, like 4 or 5 champions that were banned every single war. And I just think it would be more interesting if we could, like, look at the plus or minus on, you know, when we find our war match, you can tell if it's like plus 99 minus 1 that you got a hard matchup.
Yeah.
And then you use that war to ban, like, you know, the most overpowered champions, like the Quakes, the Ghosts, the Torches, Spidey 2099, and then, you know, if you get an easier matchup, then you maybe don't ban those champions. And I think that would make it a little bit more competitive between, like, mismatched alliances. Because the lower alliance wouldn't get as hard of bans. They'd have more access to their rosters. I just think that would make it more interesting than it was last season.
Yeah. And can I just say...
And then the other, like... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I interrupted you. But I just wanted to say, I think that's so cool that the way you approached it. Like, I really enjoy listening to folks when we have these conversations, because I think a lot of people would have said, you know, the matchup's a really hard matchup. So what we'll do is we won't use our really good bans, and we'll ban, you know, Hitmonkey, Strife, and Stealthy, because they're on the screen. Because we're probably not winning anyway. And that's not where you went. And I thought that was really, really cool. Like, that's the competitor. That's the fun, right? War can be fun. And you're like, and it's ironic that we're facing Noon, right? I mean, with as great as they are. What's up, MP Blaze and White Money? But, like, you want to win. You play to win the game. Not sorry to borrow from the meme there, but you play to win the game, and I love that. I love being in your BG and you taking that stance on it. So thank you for doing that. I had to recognize it.
Of course. I mean, I think that's what's so interesting about Alliance War right now is that the skill gap has gotten so much smaller at the top, like the top 30 alliances. I think that all of them are competitive. It used to be that there were 3 alliances that were guaranteed to be in the top 3 every season, pretty much no matter what.
Yep.
And nobody felt like they could compete with those alliances. And I think that it's not that way anymore. I think that there have been a lot of upsets. And I think that that's a good thing for the game. It gives people more of an opportunity to feel like Masters or top 3 or top 10 is approachable for them. So I definitely think that in every alliance war, every alliance, if they're competing, should go into it with the mindset of, how do we win this? How do we outsmart these players?
Oh, I agree, and I love that that's your attitude. And then I interrupted you. What was the second? What was the kind of second thing that if you could change, you would?
So the second thing, and this is a little bit of a pipe dream, I think, would absolutely be for Kabam to find some way to do a better job of dealing with cheating in Alliance War. That would be. I'm not sure exactly how they do it.
Yeah.
But, as of right now, even when an alliance gets docked at the end of the season, it doesn't change your placement. It might change the placement of somebody who was high in, a different, maybe number 2 in Platinum 1. They might get bumped up to Masters.
Yeah.
But they may not have faced any of the alliances that were docked or caught cheating.
Yep.
And those alliances, you might have faced, maybe half your wars were against those alliances.
Yeah.
And you might still end up in the same spot that that you would have been otherwise. So I wish there was a way for them to either, do something to stop the cheating in the middle of the season instead of at the very end, or refund points to alliances that lost to those alliances. And again, I'm sure it's complicated. I've seen them struggle with things, resetting war ratings and stuff like that, that, or dealing with that canceled 12th war of the season a month or so ago. So I don't know if they have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
But that would be something that I would really, really, really love to see changed.
There's also the element of it could just be one person. In fact, I would imagine it often is, where it's just one person in an alliance of 30. I'll use our own BG because it's just easier. I always if I'm going to make a villain, I want it to be me, in these hypotheticals. Sure. But it's if Enzo was being piloted, I wouldn't know. I'd have no idea. Yeah, I'm usually asleep when he takes his fights anyways. You know what I'm saying? And obviously we all know Enzo isn't cheating. But a whole alliance then also gets punished for that. And like you said, it could also tarnish the matchups that alliance had. It seems really convoluted. But I understand why you now kind of preface it as it might be a bit of a pipe dream.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I do think it's unfortunate because some people who, I know that they do not cheat. They've been in alliances that have been docked, and I feel I know them well enough, or I've known them long enough that they would tell me oh yeah, this was and they genuinely don't have any idea who it was unless that person gets banned. So
yeah,
it's definitely a tricky situation, and like I said earlier, I don't know how I would handle it. I just wish that there was a better way of handling it.
Yeah.
Or better yet, I wish that people just didn't do it in the first place.
Yeah, that would be the simple solution, now, wouldn't it?
Yes, exactly. That would be ideal.
There it is. Don't cheat. All right. Okay, so this was a cool. I really like this one. So, any war planner inspirations, any other planners that you've taken on as inspirations for your own planning, and then what have you taken from them to kind of create your own style?
Sure. So obviously, like the war planning inspiration, or teacher that I've had has been Taters, who I think is like, the greatest of all time, personally. Like, I just think that the way that he approached war planning was so smart. It was so meticulous. Like, it was just, it wasn't robotic because he took into account, like, who was taking what fights, like the people. He wasn't only going after, like, oh, this champion can take this fight. Like, he would take into account who was comfortable with that champion, how they could, how he could fit these teams together. So obviously I've learned the most from Taters, but also, BG1 and BG2 in For Loki, they actually approach war planning a little bit differently. And all of us have to share our war plans in a separate chat to let the other officers read over it and see if you've missed anything glaring.
What?
And they actually use a spreadsheet. Well, you probably know this from being in BG2, but they use a spreadsheet to post instead of, like, a long written out.
Yeah, that's right.
Explanation of things. And I definitely prefer the way that Taters does it, like writing things out and explaining, what boost to use. But I actually did make a version of BG1 and BG2's spreadsheets to help me stay organized while I'm planning, because sometimes I get kind of jumbled. So I think that the way I'm planning now is a combination. It's like a hybrid. It's probably 90% Taters and like 10% that I got from Clown and Steve, who also do an awesome job.
Yeah, they do. Very, very cool. All right. And this one, it made sense that this question came up. Is there any advice for recruits or people who may be looking to move up? I think this is like, things that might make them better recruits or more likely to get in. And then also just maybe like improvements at the game itself, at the war mode itself.
Yeah. So trying to think, because I actually did just take over the For Loki waitlist for Taters. He was doing that too before he stepped away. So as far as like making yourself look more appealing as a recruit, I would say just like make sure that you have, make sure that you're like communicative. Like if someone asks you for something, like I asked a few people for like, I'm like, okay, send me a couple of fights that you're really proud of and a couple of fights that you're not very proud of, and then tell me what you would have done differently in the fights that didn't go well. And I think I talked to like 5 different people, and only one person that I spoke with sent me a fight that they weren't proud of. The rest were just like, sent me like a bunch of random war fights. So, just if someone asks you for something, just make sure you read it before you send it.
Yeah.
And, just, I'm not sure, just, gosh, I'm trying to think of, what else I was looking for.
But it was interesting the way you answered that, right? Like, it's like that interview question where they're like, so if you could tell us about maybe some of your biggest flaws or things you can work on. And some people are like, I have no flaws. And you're like, right. Okay, yeah, that's not going to work out well.
That is, or the people who say like, my biggest flaw is being like too on time or like too reliable, like one of those answers.
I tend to make other people feel inferior because I'm so good at my job. Like that sort of
thing. Right. But I guess the other thing would just be like to come prepared with Alliance war fights, because in Masters or Tier 1, people are gonna want to see fight examples from, like, they're gonna want to see what you can actually do and like your play style and how comfortable you are in war fights.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. Just come prepared. Make sure that you are nice and decent and feel like you're qualified to play at that level. And if you don't feel like you're qualified skill-wise to play at the level that you want to play at, then the biggest piece of advice I would give is watch Alliance War videos. Like, don't necessarily go to, I mean, obviously you can also go to like Legacy's channel and stuff, but try to find like smaller channels who upload war content, like MP Blaze, DLL, like more underrated channels,
Yeah.
and just watch war videos. That is the best thing you can do, because those people go through like, like they'll verbalize what they're thinking during a fight, or if they have to make an adjustment during a fight, they'll explain that stuff to you. And so you kind of learn how to get into that mentality of how to fight an Alliance War, because fighting an Alliance War competitively requires a different mentality than just casually, playing Alliance War.
Yeah.
So that would be my biggest piece of advice, I think.
That's such great advice, and I have to seize the moment to plug the rankings team who helps me with the tier list. I mean, you named two of them there with MP Blaze, DLL, and Campo. Iron Patriot, I don't think he's uploading at the moment, or Agent X, and Nerd Hyena has started uploading too. And you're absolutely right. Like, I say it all the time, but it's easy for me to say it because I mean it. Like, I watch these channels to get better at the game. When Liza's uploading, I watch her channel so I can get better at this game. And something I felt like I don't know if you explicitly said it, so I'm going to kind of ask the question is, I feel like being skilled in war is potentially a different skill set than being skilled in general questing. Like, I feel like I am become a better war player than I am in general questing, although there is some crossover.
Oh yeah.
Would you?
No, absolutely. Yeah. No, I completely agree with you.
All right.
I'm not sure like exactly what the difference is.
Yeah.
I think in, if you watch somebody like Legacy play, for example, he is like, whether he's in war or questing, like he's pretty flashy usually. He's like intercepting. He's like, you can tell he's having fun with the fight.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying don't have fun when you're fighting in war. But it's different when you can feel that it's a team sport. It's not just like you questing. If you die because you're screwing around, you're costing 29 other people potentially a win, you know, who are using their resources and their time, and the officers who are planning. So I think that being a good war player is being like good at following directions, good at adjusting mid-fight if something doesn't go right, and being careful. That's what I think of when I think of, people who are good in Alliance War.
Yeah, and I wouldn't. I'm not sure this would be a sign of like a great war player, but I think I personally, like, it's a source of pride for me anyway. And feel free to say like, Vega, you're wrong. But I don't care. I honestly don't care. I mean, I would prefer to have 100% health at the end of the fight, but whether I'm happy or not, it's completely dependent on if I have any health left at the end of the fight. Like,
Right.
if I have 1%, I'm still happy.
I agree with you there.
Okay. And I think this is just a different mindset there. And I think that allows one to kind of like gut out a performance is, I don't know if that's exactly the term I'm looking for, but like you said, like a mistake happens or you realize like, this is not going how I thought it was going to go. And I just now need to make sure their health bar goes down before mine does. And I think that is a skill, or at least it's something I know I had to work on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's really, I say this to taters all the time, and that's that war is probably like 90 or 95% mental. Yeah. It's just the attitude you have going in. If you're nervous, you're gonna play nervous. If you're comfortable, you're gonna play comfortable. And if you're like overly confident, then you're gonna play like that, and mistakes happen that way. So I definitely think that like keeping your mentality positive while you're in a war fight, if you make a mistake, is hugely important. It's it's the difference between people who get flustered and die in the middle of a fight because one thing goes wrong, and people who are able to like, you know, clutch out solos that it doesn't look like they're gonna get.
Yeah, just figure it out. Speaking of which, you're about to solo this APOC. I remember when this was like, this was the fight. You know, this was. I think it's got to be a war boss. Yeah, and Gilly, and
with protection too.
Jeez.
I remember when I started taking this fight. This is actually before I became very comfortable at all with Alliance War, and I don't I think the first time I attempted this boss, I died.
Yeah.
And it was because my guillotine, I brought her to war and she was only rank 2. And I wasn't initially going to take the war boss, and Taters kind of talked to me and said, hey, look, it's either going to be magic or your guillotine, and if we mess up with magic, then guillotine won't be able to go in after because he's going to have 4 genetic code. So I was like, okay, I will go in first. You know, like, I don't think I have enough health to survive the fight, and I didn't. But I remember this fight just being terrified, and I did it all the time, and Taters would like tag me because I'd be like, okay, I'm going in.
Yeah.
And he would go in there to watch me fight, and I wouldn't go in because I was like dueling over and over and over again obsessively because I was so nervous.
Yeah.
And he knew what I was doing, so he would tag me to like snap me out of it kind of and be like, no more duels, just go.
Really?
You know, like just go do the fight. Like you know this fight, don't be nervous.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing.
That's amazing to hear that from you, because and I think that's kind of like a little bit of what you're talking about with like Taters and kind of knowing your players. Because like you were saying earlier, like how much confidence plays a role in war success. At least it feels like it. And yet we know, I mean, people will talk about it, like there's amazing public performers who will talk about how they vomit before every performance, and yet they own it. They're amazing. And so it's just interesting from here, because I know that if I'm nervous before a fight, I usually play significantly worse. But it sounds like for you, that's maybe your norm, or am I misunderstanding?
So it used to be that's how I used to feel literally all the time. I don't think that I really got confident in Alliance War until I was like somewhere in the middle of my streak, maybe after I hit 100 in my solo streak record. Because I remember like looking at it and I realized I was getting like a little bit less nervous. I wasn't dueling. I used to have to like take a fight, move up to the next fight, back out, stop my screen recording, wash my hands, like stretch my arms out, and then go take that fight. And then I would just do that over and over and over again. I couldn't take back-to-back fights because my hands were shaking too much. And I realized that I wasn't having to do that anymore.
Yeah.
At least as often. I could take like maybe 2 or 3 fights in a row. And I like looked at the health pool of the defenders and realized like it's only 150,000 health. You know?
Yeah.
It's like I can get through this. Like I can get through these fights unless I just huge error. I know I can. And once I changed my mentality like that, I felt like I couldn't die. I literally felt like my confidence was finally there.
That's amazing. I can relate to it a little bit. I have had a couple times where I'm like, I can't die. It's fine. And then I get a little overconfident. And I think that's part of why I end up having deaths that just like don't make sense. But it is amazing to me that in the middle of a streak of, what was it, 247 solos in a row, it was in the middle that you're like, hey, I guess I'm pretty good at this game.
Absolutely. It was crazy.
It is. You're such a good player. It's cool to watch this. SSX Slicer there. Let me see. I think there was one more question. This was interesting. I thought this was interesting. I pretty much know the answer, but I want to ask it so other people can hear it. Do you encourage your BG to hold rank ups until they are needed for war, or you see the node interactions?
Okay, so what do you mean by that? Like, because in 4 Loki we don't.
Yeah.
I don't make anybody rank up anyone for war. if they don't want to. Some people offer to like rank for defense if there's a new global tactic that comes out, and I'll like tell them like, okay, these are the defenders that we're missing. So if you want to rank them, you can, but if you don't want to, then there's no pressure to. But for the most part, I don't think that we tell anyone to rank anyone if they don't want to.
Yeah, I knew the answer. And I often will joke on the channel about how I will constantly be DMing you and Taters and be like, hey, what about this champion? You want me to rank them up? And you guys are always like, yeah, if you want to, Vega, it's fine. Like, whatever you want to do is good. But I think that's
it's nice to offer though, because sometimes like we really needed a super scroll ranked up for this new global, and TJ had the only one, and he left, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't have mine duped, like I don't even have any gold, so even if I did, I couldn't rank him up. And PPG was nice enough to reach out and ask if I wanted a defender ranked up, and he had him, so it worked out like perfectly. But otherwise, I mean, I would have never asked anyone for that defender.
Yeah, that's cool. PPG seems like a really good dude too. And this fight you're taking, I so badly wanted to take this fight. I didn't think the nodes got to be different, but when Ghost came out, and I could not convince my BG leader at the time to let me do it. And he was probably right. I would have messed it up somehow. But I mean, I would send him duels after duels of Ghost taking a Wasp. Okay.
Oh man, yeah, I remember this. I think Nims was planning. Nims and Darcy were doing a lot of the war planning for my battle group in Savage Squad, and they pretty much let me kind of do what I wanted for the most part, but I always used Ghost.
That's amazing, right? And it's cool. Yeah, I saw Nim's name on there, and I just saw Taint too. So these are names I know from SSX as well. It's cool I'm enjoying seeing this while you're talking. It's really neat.
Me too, actually. It's like nostalgic for me because Savage Squad is like my second home. So.
And here they are now, back-to-back masters.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They're crushing it, and I'm so proud of them.
I know. Tough spot to just leave it off. It was amazing, incredible. You can see why I'm just so grateful that I got to be a part of it. We will get back to it in second part of the interview, where we'll dive in. Questions are a bit more specific towards the experience as a female, but obviously every question she's answering, that's her experience. And so it's just so awesome to hear all of it. Thank you so much for watching this. Hope you're excited for part 2. Hit us up in the comments section. Take care. I hope you either learned something, were entertained, or even better, a little bit of both. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.